morning on this Tuesday morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the Take for Market Rebellion. We started off the week yesterday with a really nice NASDAQ start to the week. Obviously, when you take a look over what was going on with semiconductors technology, that was something that was starting to get a nice little lift with the NASDAQ, up about 100 points early on. Actually, it was up as much as 225 points, but we did have that pullback, and it's something that we've gotten used to over the last year, it seems, because we've had this final 30 minutes, hour, 90 minutes, whatever it might be. And we've seen these either pullbacks or explosive moves to the upside, but that final hour certainly seems to be where all the real activity seems to go. So we had that, still finished up about 160 points on the NASDAQ. So a very nice performance for that day. But we started with flat, then we were down 100 on the Dow, then we got back to flat. We were up 170 the final hour. We pulled back a little bit. We still finished up about 100 points. We got volatility hitting again, new lows. So that's something that certainly stands out as we're getting now into that teens, the high teens, 18, 19, certainly has been fairly consistent. And recently, it seems like that's something where we just seem to be planted. We'll see if that holds on. But certainly yesterday, part of the issue was you look over at the 10-year, anytime we see pressure on that, financials seem to go down. Energy's had that great sprint to the upside, but any movement from crude, that's going to pull down that entity as well. So you start to see energy moving to the downside. There's a little quick shot of my wife as she walked by. So yesterday, the upside, we certainly look over, and you look at Intel, you look at Apple, obviously the news, we talked about it yesterday with Kansas City Southern. That was something. The downside, a lot of the airlines, cruise ships, those types of sector players certainly had some pull on the markets as well. They were having a pretty rough day yesterday. But as I say, 52-week lows for the VIX. What really was surprising was how little option activity we had, especially coming off of that quad witching. You'd think you'd see a little bit more, but we actually had one of our lower days of 2021. We were down there at 32.5 million contracts. In any other year, that would be a great number. But in this year, not. And in 2020, towards the last half of the year, not. But that's really, it shows you just how much volumes we really have been having in the derivatives market. So you jump into today, and there's early on some pressure on the Dow. It was down about 140 points rather. Then we were down about 60 points. Right now, the last I looked, we were down about 30 points, but we've been flirting towards getting in that flat area. And the NASDAQ did start off flat, but it's been kind of wavering back and forth, and now just under a little bit of pressure, down like 20 points. So nothing significant, but you take a look over at crude, and crude, at least early on, was down about 4%. Well, that's going to certainly have some effects on energy. And we saw a little bit on the material side as well. That's where we've seen a lot of the pressure early on. Taking a look at the 10-year, you could see the financials were under some pressure early. That's sort of subsided a little bit. We're starting to see the financials at least get back closer and closer to flat. And so we'll see how that plays out as volatility did jump back up towards 19.5. Not anything extreme. That at least under the present conditions over the last year or so, that's definitely on the low end of the spectrum. As I say, we hit new 52-week lows yesterday. So energy was off a little bit. Financials were off a little bit. Materials were off a little bit. Industrials were off a little bit. Nothing really under huge pressure. And that's what you're seeing right now in the markets themselves. So let's get to a little bit unusual, because today I got to get a little run on. We've got the halftime report. We've also got a great guest who's going to be on there. So it's going to be a really interesting show, a little bit different than usual, just three of us on the panel. And we're going to have a special guest as well. So that's at noon Eastern time today, halftime report. I'm also going to be doing Fast Money at 5 o'clock Eastern time as well later on. So that's a busy afternoon. Anyway, let's hit some unusual. First, Cameco. We've been talking about this name for a while now because it's hit. It's just consistently been hitting CCJ. And with the stock trading about 17 and a quarter, a very nice size trade, 10,000 of the April 19.5 calls. Those were bought from 45 cents all the way up to about 60 cents. So this is not the first time. We have seen Cameco hitting fairly consistently over the last few weeks. Certainly in the month of March, we've seen a lot. So that one definitely stood out early on. Microsoft is another one. Now, Microsoft's been kind of making this slow move back or up towards highs very, very quietly, not being talked about. We talk about Tesla every day. It seems like there is the focus, of course, on Apple and some of those names, but Microsoft been kind of just steadily moving to the upside. Last it was trading about 239.70, and we had a buyer of 2,500 to the April 1st expiring. So it gives you about 2 weeks, give or take. The 247.5 calls. And I know there's a lot of different, all these different strikes, but and months, of course, but the April 1st, 247.5, those are going for about 55 cents up to about 70 cents. Not a huge trade, but a decent sized trade that just stuck out to me with 2,500 of those, because the stock has been making this slow, quiet move to the upside, not getting talked about, and maybe starting to see a little bit of an acceleration. Somebody anticipating that we might get a nice, decent jump, maybe of about $8-10 for the upside. So that should be something to at least keep up on your radar. Folks, I encourage you to get as much education as you can. You can see my camera in the back right now for the halftime report. Got it all set up, so we should all be good. I look forward to seeing you then. Have a great day of trading.